Big Blue! It's time for your Week 2 Blue Rush preview show. It's our Giants football show and podcast for the New York Post and SNY, where we're breaking down all things Giants versus Cardinals. And when I say we, you already know you've been watching Blue Rush for a long time. I mean, long-time New York Post Giants beat writer Paul Schwartz and two-time Super Bowl champ, former Giants kicker extraordinaire Lawrence Tynes. All right. Let's forget all about Dallas. That hangover is over. It's on to Arizona. Paul's going to get you all up to date with the news coming out of the practice facility. And we're going to go into the locker room and speak with nickel corner Darnay Holmes and receiver Darius Slayton. And we also have Arizona Cardinals reporter Bo Brock from PHNX Sports for your Know Your Enemy segment. Gentlemen, got you up on the screens now. They say you get better from week 1 to week 2. Week 1, we don't even have to talk about Tynes. I guess let's start with you, man. How you feeling?
Wait a minute, Brandon. I thought this was week 1. This is not week 1. Oh. That wasn't the 4th preseason game we just
can
played?
Count it as that, but the NFL's not going to count it like that. And I guess you know what? We're doing our own thing. This is week 1. Let's call it the official week 1.
Yeah. That was the 4th preseason game. You know, guys had not seen the full speed of first-team defenses, and they obviously struggled. But, again, this is our first game of the season. We're going to Arizona. Fond memories for Giants fans. Not so fond for the current Giants team. They've lost their last 4 against Arizona. Kyler Murray-led offenses. But, yeah, it'll be a nice trip for the team to get out west and kind of get away from Paul's tough questions.
Paul, now that we've established that this is the official week 1,
this is week 1, Paul. It's week 1.
No. These former players. It's week. That doesn't count. Do you guys check the standings? 0-1.
Okay.
PF. You know what PF stands
Misprint.
for, guys? Points for 0. PA. Points against 40. You can wipe it out in that athlete way. It's on to the next game, but it's there. Right. It's on the resume. You know, I talked to my 94, God bless him, father after the game about the game, and he said, "What game? I didn't see a game. The Giants didn't play a game."
Dad gets it.
You know what? He was right. I mean, they look, I get it. Everyone is so excited for week 1, right? And you have to wait through all day Sunday, all day Sunday afternoon, all day Sunday night. I get it. Family, friends. You're waiting. Oh, this is the new season. I can't wait. They're playing against the Cowboys, and 10 minutes later, you're like, "Oh my God, we might stink." So it was a rough opener, yeah. But we're past it. We're absolutely past it.
Well, the players are past it as well, Paul. I saw you at practice yesterday. They were playing some DMX. Bring it. So it kind of looked like that they've moved on and they're ready to go out to Arizona and handle business. We were both in the Quest Diagnostics Training Center, as I like to plug. Give us your practice report. Any updates, news, injury updates? What can you give us?
Well, one of the songs I heard, excuse me, is this right, Brandon? Gumma? Is that right? Gumma? Is that a...
The artist is Gunna.
Oh.
Gunna. Yep, Gunna.
Gunna.
G-U-M-M-A? Gumma? Whatever. I don't know. I thought I heard a song. Somebody told me that's what it was. I said, I can't tweet that because everyone will know I'm a fraud, and I don't know who that is. There was somebody playing Bread and Butter. Bread and Butter? Is that you know?
Say
you
butter again like that, Paul. Paul put the A on butter. Butter.
Put the A. You can't use the ER on butter. You can't. You can only say A.
Butter.
No ERs. Look, the practice report. Look, the Giants did show up for work. Brandon and I have confirmation they did not end their season. The main injury thing is Andrew Thomas, left tackle. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He said his hamstring is feeling better. I don't know. You know, he said, you know, he played 53 of the 70 snaps on offense. That was all on adrenaline. He got hurt early in that game on that, you know, Lawrence Tynes. I'm sure you averted your eyes. That blocked field goal that turned into a touchdown for the Cowboys. You have a 300+ pound guy doing something unnatural, right? You know, running after the ball on a blocked field goal. He pulls his hamstring early, right? First drive. He played the rest of the game with it. I think it's going to be really, really tough for him to play. And if he doesn't, then it's Matt Pert or maybe Josh Izudu, who has got some work at left tackle. We can talk about the intricacies of that later in the show. But That's the main thing from the injury report. As far as the mental report, I think they've done a good job of moving past it. But as you guys know,
Paul, if I may interject here real quick, Paul, I listened to a lot of the interviews this week. I just don't think that people were as critical as they should have been of Brian Daboll for not only the Daniel Jones, obviously Micah Parsons, we can talk about that, came out and said, why was he in the game? Yeah. But Andrew Thomas, like you mentioned, hurts that hamstring on that field goal. That's the first drive of the game.
Right.
Once it got to 16-0 and you knew the rain was coming down and it just didn't look like your night, I just can't imagine. I just don't understand why they kept him in the game. I just thought that was absolutely bonkers. It just,
well, first of all,
your premier left tackle.
You guys know that
Sure.
in the moment, you feel better then than you do the next day. Now, hold on.
Yeah.
Time out 1 second. Would your coach, Tom Coughlin, have pulled Andrew Thomas in a game you were losing 16-0?
No.
If he said,
Probably
I
not.
can play, he would not have. He would not have. So, I think
Right.
now Daniel Jones playing to the last drive. Look, we don't want to look back, but Daniel Jones playing to the second to last drive, I don't think was smart. But look, Andrew Thomas is the best player on the team. They don't have a left tackle who can go in there and do what he does even remotely. So that's another layer of, oh my gosh, what does Mike Kafka do if, he has to, he's the only rock solid guy you have on the line. And if that rock solid is now, not there, it's an issue.
Well, let's talk about that because we can get into talking about the offense if he doesn't play. We're talking about a Cardinals defense that put up 6 sacks last week against the Washington Commanders. Tynes, put on your Kafka hat. If Andrew Thomas can't go or he is sort of banged up, how does that limit you in terms of your play calling?
Yeah, that's certainly going to limit this football team. I mean, come out and run the football. They've got a solid group of run blockers with, John Michael Schmitz. That's something that Evan Neal does really well. He's a great run blocker. Glowinski, get them in the game. This front is not huge. The linebackers are not big. I kind of watched the tape this week. They do fly around. They are fast. They play with great energy. And listen, this is a very, very, very dangerous game. You know why? There's 8 new starters on defense, I believe, out of 11 players. All these guys are playing for contracts. If you really think about it, this is why games like this scare me, because this is a dangerous team. They have nothing to lose, right? Think about it. No one expects them to do anything. Jonathan Gannon's their defensive coordinator, who, oh, by the way, knows who the heck we are. The Giants haven't thrown for more than 150 yards and averaged 13 points in 5 games against him as a coordinator. I know it's a different set of players. But this guy clearly understands what the Giants are trying to do offensively, and they are playing with house money. Very, very dangerous game. But listen, if you just line up and hit them in the mouth, which I don't think Washington did a great job of, they did it a little bit watching that game back, we can get after them in the run game. You got to go after them. They're not a big unit, but they are fast, and they are quick, and they play very, very aggressively. Like you mentioned, 6 sacks.
Now, Jonathan Gannon, they play a lot of quarters, right? So they're going to have 4 guys deep, which does invite you to run the ball. Somewhat. So look, but you guys know this is not the old time Nebraska, Oklahoma. We're going to come down. I mean, you can't just say we're going to run the ball. Now, the first drive, the Giants did it great, and then they started.
Why can't you? Why can't you say you're just going to run the ball?
You can run the ball, but you can't just say we're going to run it 45 times today and we're going to have Daniel throw 18 passes. You can't.
If you don't have someone that can protect your quarterback, you might have to run it 45 times.
So and you can protect it with, instead of running the ball 45 times, you can protect him with controlled throws. We're going to see a lot of 3-step drops. You see a lot of screens to get the ball out of his hands. But that sucks because you've now put playmakers around Daniel Jones to where all we talked about all training camp, Paul, was throwing the ball down the field, how this is Mike Kafka offense 2.0, how the Giants are taking a step with explosive plays. So that kind of plays into what the Cardinals want to do, just running the ball and having controlled throws, because now you want to just take time off the clock. You don't want the defense out there that much, and you want to make sure that you don't put the offense any 3rd and 10 pluses or 3rd and longs. So that kind of just plays into that Arizona defense. And like my dad used to say growing up, you're only as good as your offensive line. And that means receivers, tight ends, running backs. This offensive line, this Giants offensive line has to show up this weekend. Saquon Barkley in the run game. Guys, if you're Mike Kafka, if you are going to run the ball or a heavy dose of run, are you going to Evan Neal's side? Are you still going up the middle? Are there still question marks in terms of the interior run blocking?
Well, I remember what Azudu did last year, right? He came in a different position at guard if he does swing out to tackle. I still think the strength of this offensive line right now, without Andrew Thomas, would be to run the football. I'm not saying they're not going to throw it when they can. Waller's a little bit limited with the hamstring. You know, you can't protect the quarterback. You said 3-step drops. My God, we couldn't even do a 2-step drop against the Cowboys. So 3-step drop, you know what? They just got to run the ball and establish the run and get this thing going, because I think that's the only chance they truly have to get things going offensively. Really. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but this team, guys, they got exposed and they have to gain some confidence back.
Paul.
The Commanders did a good job. The Commanders did not run the ball. You know, the Cardinals stopped the Commanders on the ground last week. So, you know, but I think one thing I think we're falling into a little bit of a trap is the Cardinals are not the Cowboys in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the Cowboys are the worst matchup in the league, defensive front versus Giants offensive front. Worse than
especially week one, right? Especially in a week one game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible matchup. So, I mean, there's no Micah Parsons out there. There just isn't. So I don't think the Giants can also go in and say, oh, my gosh, we can't do anything. We have to just, shut things down. I mean, the Giants need to be in attack mode. They need to do it smart. There's no question about it. I think they will take their shots. Waller was given a veterans rest day on Wednesday, but he did not. You know, it's interesting. He revealed that he's got a little bit of a nerve thing in that hamstring from last year. So he's going to be monitored all season. You know, the thing is going to be, it's like, remember when Plaxico, you know, he didn't practice at times, you know, Waller and Sterling Shepard, certainly Waller, more importantly, is going to get 1 day off a week every week this season. You know, there will be a Wednesday or Thursday, whatever they think is best, depending on when the game is. So that's going to be standard operating procedure to massage him, as you will, through the season to get him into the games. But yeah, I agree with you, Brandon, as far as now you're a receiver, so you would always agree with this. But, you know, they're not going to say, okay, Darius Slayton, we're sorry. You know, you can't run down a field. Jalen Hyatt, you can't run down a field. We got to compact everything. They have to be in attack mode. They have to do it smart. You know, you can't give the Cardinals too much credit here, too much, you know, respect. You got to give them respect, but not too much.
Yeah, especially when you talked about how the Cowboys have that heavy front seven. If you look at the back end, Arizona doesn't have Stephon Gilmore and Trayvon Diggs on the back end. They have rookie Catrell Clark. They have Marco Wilson. Obviously, like Brian Dable said, you've got to identify Budda Baker on where he's going to be. But even on that back end, personnel-wise, they don't match up like the Giants match up against the Cowboys. Let's flip over to the defense. Wink Martindale's defense last week. They had to make some stops, didn't get any turnovers. Now we're talking about going up against the Arizona Cardinals offense where Joshua Dobbs threw for, I believe, 175 yards. He was efficient, but it was a bunch of checkdowns. He had 70% on his completion. But again, this is only his second week in this offense. Tynes Martindale, how are you going after Joshua Dobbs?
Yeah, you know, Arizona possesses some decent skill guys. They've got more. They've got Hollywood Brown, who we know can take the top off of defense. And they've got Connor, who's a really good running back. But again, this game's going to have to be won on this side of the football because Josh Dobbs, right? Like, great kid, smart, has 19 degrees. He's an engineer. He's like an astronaut. He's all these things. But he's only been there 2 weeks, like you mentioned, Brandon. I just don't think that he can do much against our defense. But they got to show up, guys. The Dallas game is somewhat misleading in terms of, you know, Dak Prescott did not take real full 2 and 3 or 3 and 5 step drops against that Cowboy or against the Giants defense. So them not getting pressure is a little. He didn't have to, right? They ran the ball. They did some quick screens. They did some quick stuff, quick game. But make no mistake about it. These guys have to show up on defense in order to impact this game and make sure the Giants come out of there with the victory, because they just have not pressured the quarterback. And I really do think they can get after this kid.
Yeah, you're going to have to get after this quarterback because if you think about the Cardinals' Tight ends, Zach Ertz, Trey McBride accounted for 12 of the team's 30 targets. They had 8 catches for 44 yards. A diamond's a girl's best friend. A tight end is a quarterback's best friend. Pass rush has to get there. But Paul, what do you think the Giants defense has to be thinking going into this game against this Cardinals offense?
Well, first of all, I think Dak Prescott had 3 pure dropbacks in the second half.
Oh my!
Well, there you go. Yeah,
there you go.
So I mean, there's no wanting to get to the quarterback. There basically was no quarterback. It was a non-game in the second half. Now, Azeez Ojulari popped up on the injury report on Wednesday, limited with a hamstring. Okay, now you guys know there are some players when that happens, you're like, yeah, whatever. Antrell Roll, limited hamstring. You're like, okay, he'll play 76 snaps on defense on Sunday. I don't care what he's listed as. Azeez Ojulari with a soft tissue pops up on the injury report, and you're like, okay, is it going to go this way? Is it going to go this way? So I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying it's something to watch. We're all saying he's got to stay healthy and be a lot better. Stay on the field. We'll see if he shakes this off and he's okay. We'll see moving forward with that. Look, guys, it's Josh Dobbs. He's been on 7 different teams. He's 0-3 as a starting quarterback. Brandon, you mentioned a stat. I think he threw for 132 yards last week.
Oh, I must have gave him some. My bad. Yeah.
I think we can check that. I just look. This is one of maybe the weakest passing attack the Giants will see this year. This guy he's not really an NFL starting quarterback at all. We know Kyler Murray is not there. We don't know what is future holds for him in Arizona. Probably not a lot. But this is a guy that Wink Martindale has to pound into the ground. He has to confuse them. He has to, he can run a little bit certainly, but that's not going to lose the game for the Giants if Josh Dobbs' legs gains a few first downs here and there. This is. I don't know what to think of the Giants defense after week 1. I really don't. Like I said, it was not after a while, it just wasn't a real game. The Cowboys weren't trying to do anything in the second half. I thought the young cornerbacks played reasonably well. I really do. I don't think they were overmatched or anything like that. I'd like to see Xavier McKinney make some impact plays and things like that. I think this is a big Bobby Okereke game. Yep. I really do because, he and James Conner have to meet a lot. Preferably not 8 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. But let's face it, let's not make it, something that it's not. This is a Josh Dobbs-led Cardinals offense, and the Giants have to, hold them to, 17 or less points. That's all there is to it.
Josh Dobbs, 132 yards. You're correct. James Conner, 62 yards rushing. Receiving yards, Rondale Moore, 33. Giants defense has to come to work, and then you also have Isaiah Simmons going back to Arizona. So I imagine what that's going to be like. I sat down and spoke with him yesterday, but he's excited. He knows there's some teammates that he's ready to trash talk, and I asked him who's he ready to hit or trash talk. He says the receivers, and it's because back in practice he wasn't able to hit them because they'd be in shells, so they'd run their mouth. They caught a pass on them, but it's like, hey, I wasn't able to hit you. It's third tempo. But yeah, we broke down that matchup on how we feel the Giants should attack and how the Giants are going to be attacked. Tynes, you hit the fans up on the X app now, and you asked them some questions. Let's hit this fan bag, see what the fans, Big Blue, thinks about Sunday.
Okay. You want me to just read them off?
Yes, sir.
I didn't have them pulled up. The Ojulari brothers are going to have a reunion in Arizona this week.
Yep.
Right? BJ's there. All right. So we've got 2 questions. We obviously appreciate you guys listening to the show. This is from Darius Smith. Goes by the Twitter handle DPass2009. Hi, all. Do you expect DJ to bounce back after how he played? And what specifically will Kafka need to do to ensure that he isn't repeating mistakes?
Go ahead, take that one, Paul.
Well, Mike Kafka has to, get his 5 best offensive linemen on the field. Now, look, this was not only an offensive line breakdown. Daniel Jones did not play well. He did not play well. He forced, the first interception, he puts it in Saquon Barkley's hands. Barkley gets hit, and, it's a fumble, and it's a pick 6 the other way. The second interception was Daniel Jones just trying to forced the ball where it didn't need to be forced and trying to make a play where there was no play to be made. So, Daniel had that look of, I don't know if I can trust what's in front of me, and that's not a good look for any quarterback. So he has to get that out of his eyes right away and, has to say, okay, darn it, no matter what happens in front of me, I got to keep this ball moving forward. What Kafka can do is I think run the ball, certainly. I think this whole thing we're waiting for, Saquon is going to become this pass-catching demon out of the backfield. Guys, I don't know if it's going to happen. They don't view Saquon as Christian McCaffrey. They just don't. Mm-hmm. So, will he be able to, take a dump off and make a guy miss and gain 25 yards maybe? But I don't see, these wheel routes and anything as being a major staple of their offense. I just don't.
Yeah, if I was to say something to Daniel Jones, it'd be KYP, know your personnel. You say that usually when you're throwing to your playmakers, hey, don't throw it out there for a slow guy, throw it up for a tall guy, that sort of thing. But knowing, like you said, what's in front of you. If you do have some sort of play action, you're rolling out to the right, you may have to get your head around a little bit faster because that's Evan Neal over there until they get that offensive line fixed up. So if I think Daniel Jones takes that step, if he KYPs, knows his personnel on the offensive line. Tynes?
Yeah. Week 1 to week 2, right? It's the typical overreaction of us fans, everyone that watches the NFL football for your team that loses. If you think about it, guys, the perfect storm happened, right? They're right there. They're going to score a touchdown. You get the false start. You get the bad snap. You get the blocked field goal for a touchdown. Then you have kind of a bad series coming out, and then there's the pick six. I mean, that's just like extraordinary events that won't happen the rest of the year. They really won't. And so, but we're going to judge this team off that. And then the game got out of hand, and obviously it turns into a 40-0 win. There's a template, right? There's a template now for the Cardinals. There's a little bit of a template, really not for the Giants. I mean, if you think about it, they didn't really do much outside of running in the first quarter. Teams have templates on kind of ideas and schemes and personnel packages, which no one had before week 1. So I think that helps every team. I trust Mike Kafka. I trust Brian Dable. They're going to get a scheme in place for Sunday's game.
Yep.
And it will be a positive experience for Giants fans.
Next question.
Next question is Anthony Verdin, A Verdin 7. Interesting question. Great question. Thanks for submitting, Anthony. Should the Giants look at trading Barkley for a proven offensive lineman? I would hate for the Giants to lose Barkley, but he isn't locked up long-term and would probably have the most trade value. Interesting.
Right. Well, let's say this trade does happen and you bring in an interior lineman or maybe someone to replace Evan Neal that can open up the hole. Now, who do you have to run through the hole? Saquon Barkley is that guy at running back that will be able to take a 6-yard run into a 60-yard run. So I'm not with that trade, at least the Giants aren't making the playoffs and they're looking ahead. Paul?
This is not fantasy football. It's not the craziest idea, but when is the last time that type of trade happened after week 1 in the NFL season? You know what I mean? First of all, what team has a surplus of starting offensive linemen that is going to trade that person for Saquon Barkley, who really is, we know the market for running backs in the league, and it's not very good. So, look, I saw a lot of criticism of Brian Dable, a lot of criticism of Joe Shane this week. He didn't do this, he didn't do that. Where, a few days earlier, it was like, in Dable and Shane we trust. So, it was a disaster of an opener. But you can't turn that into a just, okay, that's it. Damn the torpedoes. We have to blow everything up here. No, 1,000 times no.
Paul, they out here trying to make Madden trades.
Oh, yeah. Fantasy football trades. The Giants are not an offensive lineman away from being a Super Bowl champion. So if you look at it from that perspective, right, we trade Saquon, who is giving up, like Paul mentioned, a starting caliber offensive lineman for a running back. Yeah. I love the concept. I love the idea. It's a really good question just for conversation purposes. But the Giants, in my opinion, are not an offensive lineman away from winning the Super Bowl. I think they have some other flaws on this football team.
Hey, we thank you guys for the comments and the smiles just now. We got Paul talking about you guys are making fantasy football trades out here. You guys saw what we think about this matchup. But on Wednesday, I got a chance to go into the locker room, and I got real with corner Darnay Holmes and big play receiver Darius Slayton all about this week's matchup. All right, I'm here with cornerback Darnay Holmes. All right, obviously you guys have put last week to bed. When did you guys have, as a defensive unit, when did you have your move-on moment?
Truthfully, I feel like once we wrapped it up in the locker room, it's one of those things that you got to really just have a short-term memory, because at the end of the day, we didn't want that to happen, but it happened, and there was a reason why it happened. So we came in here on Monday, figured out the reason behind those things, and now it's time to move forward and keep our foot on the gas, man.
You guys talk about accountability a lot.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I feel like in life, and definitely as a man, as you know, you got to be accountable of your choices and your actions, and we definitely are accountable to not putting up no points and giving up 40 for sure.
Yeah, I heard some Bryson Tiller going on in the weight room, though. Like, what's going on with that? Somebody in their feelings?
Nah, we walked into that defensive room to that Kendrick Lamar. We're going to be all right, man. You got to have them high spirits. It's all going to make sense at the end of the day.
I love it. Let's talk about Arizona. You guys are going up against Joshua Dobbs. Had himself, I guess you could say, a safe day, solid day, 70% completion ratings. Okay. What's the difference between going up against Dak Prescott and Joshua Dobbs?
I mean, at the end of the day, they both NFL quarterbacks, and I feel like they both got different schemes. Figuring out that Dobbs just got there probably like a week and a half ago, I feel like it's a lot of safe ball, as you said. He had a safe game, so I feel like going into week 2, they're probably going to mix up a little bit. First home game, and it's going to be most likely a big crowd. We got our guy who used to play for them on our team now, Zay, so I feel like it's going to be a big showcase for us to show them that we really about that. And the week that happened before really wasn't who we are. It's not our identity at all, for sure.
Well, he's a guy that's been, we're talking about Isaiah Simmons, he's a guy that's been on a new team. It's been, 2 weeks? Yeah. How do you guys, have you gelled that much or had that chemistry that much to where you're like, we want to go back and win one for a player that's only been in your locker room for such a short time?
So I feel like a lot of people don't understand, like, the NFL is a brotherhood. A lot of our guys train with Zay in the offseason. A lot of our guys got residence in Arizona where Zay actually stay at. So once he came over to the big city, it was easy for us to gel. At the end of the day, we all got the same morals, we all got the same values, and when you're in line with great people, it's always going to be great energy around the locker room for sure.
You're going up against a tight end like Zach Ertz, 6 catches, led all receivers, tight ends and receivers in catches, but you still got a guy like Hollywood Brown and Rondell Moore out there. How you shut those guys down or at least neutralize them?
I feel like really just understanding that technique can set you free. I feel like once you try to do different things that's outside the ordinary, that's when they're going to have those big plays. So I feel like at the end of the day, they're great players, but we're great players too, and we're going to go up there, have our feet in the ground, and line it up each and every play.
Well, go be free on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, go be free, man. Go get that dub too.
I'm here with wide receiver Darius Slayton. Darius, you've been a leader on this team for quite some time. You've made plays for this team and in this league. When you guys walked out of the receiver room after watching the tape, Dallas, onto the Arizona mentality, what was the vibe like walking out of that receiver room?
It was a lot of things we knew that we needed to improve on. Obviously we're disappointed. We didn't perform the way we wanted to perform, but at the end of the day, we have another opponent coming up this week in the Arizona Cardinals, and we got to be ready for them.
All right. I mean, you guys run off of energy, big play guys, big energy guys. Like, how do you stay loose this week in practice, going into this game? Do you just stop thinking about it as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think now that we've went out in practice, I think that's kind of like the best thing for you is to get out there, get on the grass, execute at a high level, run around with energy and enthusiasm, and that kind of gets the positive energy flowing.
You're going up against a Jonathan Gannon defense that you've seen before. Obviously, you've played the Eagles a bunch of times. Like, what's different from his schemes or personnel when he was with the Eagles as opposed to now that he's with the Cardinals?
Scheme is similar. They have a lot of similar looks, a lot of similar coverages, but obviously, like, people make a big difference, as opposed to, obviously the Eagles have one of the more talented defenses in the league, so there's certain things that they can get away with due to personnel that, they don't quite have the same guys in Arizona, but, the scheme is still very similar and obviously something we're familiar with and look forward to going against.
Where do you guys create your big play within that secondary? Is it second level? Like where are you guys looking at? Like, yeah, we're gonna hit that up.
Yeah, I think kind of one of the things you walk away from last week was partially because it's a rain game, and also sometimes the pressure. It's hard to hit like the big long ones down the field. So catch and run scenarios. Like we got to catch it underneath, make people miss, and go the long way, as well as getting deep.
Good luck on Sunday.
Appreciate it.
It's pretty interesting how Slayton broke down the difference in personnel rather than scheme from a Jonathan Gannon defense out in Arizona coming from Philly. So the offense knows the scheme, and Giants fans, we want you guys to know exactly who this team is facing. Don't sleep on the Arizona Cardinals. I spoke with Arizona Cardinals reporter Bo Brock from PHNX Sports for this week's Know Your Enemy.
Giants are going out to Arizona for a little after 4 o'clock game on Sunday. All right, Bo, you were out at practice today. You said kind of like y'all's hard day out there. Day one in some offense. In some on some teams. What would you say was the vibe like at practice coming off that loss?
I think this team is hungry, man. I think that they've kind of overachieved as far as the expectations, which were about as low as they get as far as the NFL goes. This is a team that people think is going to be vying for the number 1 overall pick, and they come out and they're sitting in the fourth quarter against the Washington Commanders with a chance to win the game. Now, they came up short, but I think this is a team that sees kind of blood in the water as far as week 2 and a real good chance to potentially get a win against the New York Giants team, kind of licking its wounds after a tough, Sunday night performance.
Yeah, and you can't think that the Cardinals are going to be just some sort of pushover. You mentioned the fact that they were still in the game against the Commanders in the fourth quarter, and that's without offense with any chemistry or knowing or someone behind at the quarterback spot that knows the offense. You think Joshua Dobbs, who's pretty much in a couple weeks in that system, in that offense, you think they can be more explosive this week and help that defense out?
Yeah, and that was the conversation from Dobbs himself, his head coach, Jonathan Gannon, after practice today, saying, they think that they can take a pretty good leap offensively, just having one more week for Dobbs to prepare because he was only in the system 2 weeks prior to the season opener. Sure, he had familiarity with the Cardinals offense coordinator, Drew Petzing, but, as far as his playmakers go, he never worked with them before. And you could see there's some rhythm, some timing as far as guys getting out of breaks and just the rapport that you need that's necessary to get in the flow. He didn't have it in Joshua Dobbs. He's expressed several times he thinks operationally they're going to be better, and he's going to have a lot better timing with his receivers come Sunday.
So where would you attack Wink Martindale's defense, who gave up some points against the Cowboys?
Yeah, you know what? And Jonathan Gannon, a defensive mind himself, was in the NFCs for a long time with the Eagles. A lot of respect for Wink Martindale. He knows they're going to have those exotic pressures, and a guy like Joshua Dobbs and this Cardinals offensive line, they're going to have to be on top of their game. They weren't too bad against Washington, but I think they wanted a little better performance, and Wink Martindale is not going to just let them have that, and they know that. So I think that they're just going to make sure that Dobbs is sound as far as with his reads and getting the ball out in a timely fashion. Instead of maybe, 1 week into it, he was holding on to the ball maybe a little too long, trying to make plays happen, or hopefully he just kind of is more on schedule and doesn't have to improvise so much.
All right, before we go on and talk about the Cardinals defense, we got to talk about the guy who was on the Cardinals for some time. Isaiah Simmons is now a New York Giant. What do you think that's going to be like for his return, especially his departure was only such a short while ago?
It's tough to kind of predict with Isaiah, and I think that's the whole thing. That's why he became such a polarizing figure here in the desert. 8th overall pick, so successful for those Clemson teams, was just an absolute monster in the college ranks, and then comes to the pro level, and he was good, right? He played some pretty solid downs for the Cardinals last year. He made a bunch of game-changing plays, but consistently, you didn't know what to expect from Isaiah on a down-to-down basis, where he was going to be on the field, where he's going to be making that impact. And, you look at his first performance with the G-Men, he's got 1 tackle. He's got about 15 snaps in that defense. I'm sure you'll probably see that go up, and hopefully they'll be giving him an opportunity to go against the team that traded him just for a 7th round pick just before the season starts. But I think that, Isaiah is going to be hungry, and he always is, but how are they going to deploy him in a position to where he's going to be able to make a game-changing play? I think the Cardinals have a pretty good idea of how to slow him down a little bit. If they put him off the edge, if they put him in coverage. I think if they put him in coverage, Brandon, it could be, Joshua Dobbs and this Cardinals offense looking to make a play his way.
All right, yeah. Wink Martindale caught him a perfect fit in this defense. So it's interesting after the 15 snaps, see how much he progresses, not only in snap crowd, but making plays as well. All right, let's Riverside it. Talk about the Cardinals defense. Again, kept the Arizona Cardinals in the game against the Commanders. Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, they're familiar with Jonathan Gannon and Rawls, the defense coordinator from Philly. How do you think that the Cardinals defense has the advantage in this one?
I think that they're in a really good spot. I think they're ahead of schedule, Brandon. I mean, this was a Jonathan Gannon defense in Philly last year that racked up so many sacks, forced so many turnovers, and you're like, okay, I'm looking at the personnel, and it's not the same here in Arizona. But as far as week one, it didn't seem to matter. There were guys flying around the football. Defensive secondary was hitting hard because you're White, a guy who came from Philly to Arizona, was playing hard-nosed football, he was kind of that general on the field. And then this rotation up front, their front seven, they were just putting guys into the game, and they were making plays from unknowns like Dennis Gardeck and Jonathan Ledbetter to Victor Dumakagi. It's just a rotation that they're trying to really keep opposing offenses off balance. It's a diverse playing style and sizes from these guys. And I think Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rawls, they were mad scientists week one. They look to continue that in week two with just outside of Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, some really unknown guys. But I think you should expect a repeat of performance, especially when they look at the opportunity in front of them, an offense that was held out of the end zone, that was held off the scoreboard. They're kind of licking their chops looking at that.
Yeah, Brian Dable kind of, when talking to reporters, he alluded to the fact that the scheme is somewhat the same as it was out in Philly, but the personnel, there is a difference in personnel in terms of pass rush, secondary. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye out on the Giants receivers versus the Cardinals secondary if the Cardinals pass rush can't get there. If Daniel Jones has time, it's interesting to see what actually happens with the weapons that they brought in. All right, both teams are 0-1. The Giants have more hype around them at the beginning of this season. The Cardinals walk away 1-1 if they what?
If they continue to play that hard-nosed, violent style of defense, and if Joshua Dobbs takes a massive step forward with this offense. Now, you can be skeptical about that, and I get it, because this is a guy that had limited experience even coming into this. But to expect him to take a massive jump in order to win a football game, even though it's at home for the Cardinals, if Joshua Dobbs can get it going and score some points for him, it's going to work out well for the Arizona Cardinals at home. If not, they probably fall to 0-2.
Tell the people where they can find you.
And of course, you guys can find us PHNX Sports on YouTube. And of course, follow me on Twitter at Bo Brock and at PHNX Cardinals. We're talking about the Cards on a daily basis, 5 days a week. And of course, Sundays, pre and post game.
Hey, thanks for that, Bo. So he mentioned how he expects the Cardinals offense to be a lot more explosive this week and their defense to be the team's strength again. And that's going to bring us into our prop bets and our predictions. Gentlemen, you know how we roll with this one. We're talking about a Cardinals defense that only gave up 156 yards to Sam Howell and the Commanders. So the first prop bet is going to be Daniel Jones passing yards over under 207.5 times.
I'm going to go under. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to go under here. This team can fly around. They're fast. They get after the quarterback pretty well, and I think this is a run game for the New York Football Giants this week.
Paul,
I'm going to go under. I don't want to, make myself crazy about the first game, but until I see it, I need to see it, right? I agree that Saquon Barkley needs to be in the triple figures in this game, or Matt Breida or Eric Gray or Gary Brightwell. Somebody, they need to have a lot of rushing yards in this game. Until they show they can protect the passer, I'm not going to give Daniel Jones a lot of passing yards.
I'm going to go over on this one, 220 to be exact. I think they surrounded him with a bunch of yak-type receivers. We mentioned that the ability to possibly go in the quick game, get the ball out of his hands fast. I see a broken tackle or two, a guy getting some sort of yak yards, and that's how he accumulates his yards. The other, next player prop bet, I'm going to go with you last on this one, Tynes. So I'll start with you, Paul. Matt Prater, who's the Cardinals kicker, kicking points, 5.5 over under, Paul.
Lawrence Tynes should take all three of these. Any kicker questions Lawrence should take. Over. He had 9 points in the opener, 5.5 points. That's 2 field goals for Matt Prater. Oh yeah, he'll get 2 field goals. Yeah, I think the Josh Dobbs offense is perfectly suited to set up for field goals. Okay, so he'll get a few of them. Maybe they'll score a touchdown. That's an extra point. Over 5.5. Yeah.
I think this is the safest bet for anyone out there. Yeah, over 2, even if it's a bend but don't break type defensive day for Wink Martindale's defense, he's still going to hit, I believe, 2 field goals. So, yeah, over on this one, Tynes.
Yeah, when Matt Prater walks in the building, even though I think he's pushing 40 years old, this guy's been around forever. I think he still has the most 50-yard field goals in NFL history. This guy is approaching Sebastian Janikowski territory. He hits long field goals. So Dobbs and them are not going to have to move the football very far. This is the layup of the week in terms of bets, over 5.5 points.
All right, total points scored, 39.5 Tynes.
I'm going to stay under that. 0 to 40 points. I know it's combined gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies, if you will, until they start scoring some points, guys. I'm going to go under 39.5. I think it's kind of a low-scoring, grinded-out, kind of a running football game for the Giants.
Same. I got to go under 39.5. The Giants have to show that they can get some explosive plays on the board, put some point on the board first and foremost, but to show that this offense is taking that step. And I don't see the Cardinals putting up that many points. So, yeah, I'm definitely taking that under. Paul.
39.5, guys. This is the NFL, the high-scoring NFL. That is a low number, 39.5.
That is, yeah.
It's a low number. Oh, you 2 guys. Oh, these teams can't combine for that. I'm going over. I mean, I'm not going way over, but I'm going over. I mean, come on. I mean, the Giants can't figure out a way to, score 25, 26, 27 points, and they just gave up 40, so they'll probably give up a few points. I'm going over.
All right, let's get into our final thoughts. Paul, we'll start with you. If you're Brian Daboll, you're Paul Daboll, what are you telling this team?
Well, I think he did a good job earlier, in the week. And interesting, but Brian Daboll was asked, how do you make sure your team does, it can flush this and can get past it? And he said, it's not something you start doing this week. This is something you start talking about in OTAs and in the spring and in training camp. You can't just say, oh, by the way, you have to, the culture is not just BS. You have to instill it early in a team that, we can overcome great things. We can overcome bad things. We can do what it takes here. Even if we won by 40, we have to flush that as well. A lot easier to flush, of course. So I think the Giants, getting on an airplane and going far is a good thing for the Giants. I really do.
Paul, you kind of froze up right there, but I'll take the reins. I'm going to channel my inner Darnay Holmes from his interview that we had. Like he said, the defense was playing Kendrick Lamar. We going to be all right. They understand that this offense has weapons. They've seen this offense the entire training camp. They know what they have on the other side of the ball. They know that their teammates have to clean it up on the other side of the ball. So I'm looking at this Giants defense to play lights out, fly around the field, and create some sort of turnovers to gain Daniel Jones in this offense extra possessions. So in the words of Darnay Holmes and Kendrick Lamar, Giants defense going to be all right, and this team. Tynes, kick us through.
Yep, I'm going to stick with running the football and playing good defense. This defense has to show up. There's a lot of money, a lot of draft capital over there. These guys are going to show up. I have a lot of faith in what this defense is going to be able to do against a Josh Dobbs-led offense. They still have some playmakers, but again, it's the New York Giants versus the Arizona Cardinals. Run the football, pass when you can, and play good defense. I mean, this is so I'm going to give a score. I'm going to give a prediction of a score. I'm going to go 20-12. 20-12. Not a huge scoring game while we're under the 39.5, Paul, but I think 3 or 4 field goals from the Cardinals, and we score 20.
Paul, you kind of froze up a little at the end of your final thought, so finish
and
that
I'm
up.
Sneezing.
Bless you.
Jeez.
Finish that up and give us your prediction.
Just thinking of 100 degrees in Arizona made me freeze up. I'm going 24-17. According to my math, that's slightly over the 39.5. Not an overwhelming game or anything like that. Look, they're going out west and they're staying out west, right? They're playing Thursday night in San Francisco. You are 0-1 can become 0-3 in a flash if this doesn't get fixed right away. So you got to win this game. I think the Giants know that. You know, I think they're in a decent spot here. They're healthy enough. I think they'll take care of business.
Why is anyone bringing up the temperature? Who cares? It's a dome.
It's a dome.
I agree with that. I'm just saying I have to get to the dome, right? And it's very hot walking to the dome.
Just bring your flip-flops and your board shorts, Paul. You'll be at the Marriott having a drink with an umbrella in it. I mean, you're going to be good. And then you got to put some notes down. I mean,
Paul,
life is not hard for Paul.
You going to
Schwartz.
wear the sunscreen on your nose?
Please do. Zinc. Zinc.
Maybe I'll wear that big floppy hat I wear at training camp. Maybe I'll wear it in the press box just to make sure there's no glare.
You got to protect that beautiful skin.
We got to hold them up to it. All right, fellas, great show. That's going to be a wrap on our Week 2 Blue Rush preview. I told you guys we're going big with Blue Rush this season, so make sure you guys continue to subscribe to Blue Rush Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. When Tynes tweets for questions, please continue to drop those comments so we can read them out. And please make sure to follow the New York Post Sports and SNY YouTube channels for all videos from Blue Rush. New episodes are going to drop Monday morning following Giants games and Thursdays previewing the week ahead. For Paul Schwartz and Lawrence Tynes, I'm Brendan London, and we're going to catch you guys later on another episode of Blue Rush.